English.
English, exactly. English is fun.
Zeros and ones.
No, but there was something I was going to ask you in preparation while we let everybody get in here.
Yeah.
Is basically with No Shave November coming up, what is the longest your beard has ever been? Because for as long as I've known you, you've always had a beard, and I feel like I would be like one of your kids, like that would be like really freaked out if you shaved your beard because I wouldn't recognize you at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious, like, what's the longest it's ever been?
I think the longest I've ever gotten it. I never measured it, but it's probably on tour.
By the way, we're talking about we're talking about beards. If anybody just walked in,
Yeah, beard. How long has the beard gotten ever? And I
for No
think
Shave November.
I've gotten it to like almost like my shirt. Like I could go like this and it would touch my shirt. So it's pretty girthy, you know.
Oh
And
my
like
god.
I'm Venezuelan, so like I'm bald up top here, but this over here is like a curly, just brush of undergrowth. So it's pretty hectic. How about you? How long you
I
get?
dig it. I'm trying to think. I feel like there was a picture of me at like the ASCAP thing, and my beard was like maybe like this long, but which I'm like trying to think like yeah, I guess I didn't touch my collarbone, but it would be like yeah, like visibly like an outline, but I just could never get the body of it to feel right, you know.
Like it was thicker down here than out here?
Yeah, honestly, like I don't grow. It doesn't grow this way, but maybe also has to do with like how I was picking and choosing the thing. Young robot, while you're here, what is up?
Yeah.
Can
So
you
what's up?
can
Hey!
can you hear Dan? Can you hear Dan? Can anybody hear Dan? Can I get a yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can hear Dan. I love it.
Yes.
Yeehaw. Dude, we did it. We did it, y'all. And the chat is appearing on the left side and everything. Sounds awesome for both of you. It is.
Killer.
It's like you're saying you're happy for us in your own way. So I appreciate that. Yeehaw! That's
Love you.
Kiwi is my wife. You met Kristen, right? I'm trying to think
Yeah,
if
of
you have.
course. Yeah.
But
Hi.
it's Dan. Dan's here.
It's
Yeehaw.
me. It's me.
The No, so I mean, I again wanted to give people a little bit of time to get in here. So especially with that nice, fun fall start that we had had. But I was going to ask you in the morning: are you a coffee person or a tea person,
Oh man.
or are you neither of those things? Or are you just straight up water?
I yeah, like it depends. So if I have a super early day, it's usually just water because I'm contemplating why I'm awake that early usually, and I don't have time to
Who
choose.
am I?
What am I doing with my life? Why is it 5:30 and I'm awake? Like this is terrible. On like a closer to normal day, I'll do coffee first for sure, like 7:30 ish or something. How about you? Coffee guy?
Coffee for sure. I've been making like we got an espresso machine and I've been making lattes, like trying to figure it out. And every time I'm like, it's not as good as the store. Like it's like for some reason when
Yeah.
somebody else makes you a latte, it tastes better. I don't know. That's just how I feel, and maybe that's
Oh
like
yeah.
super bougie or something. But like, or I just genuinely think I'm bad at making lattes. My wife disagrees with me though. Kristen complimented the latte, I think, as recently as this morning, as I was giving her her Starbucks and my Starbucks.
Dude, that's some like stand-up comedy setup over here, bro.
Oh yeah, thank you. Good night, and then exit that way. No, that's great.
That's amazing.
Dude, we're
Dude,
gonna.
that's like a next level dad joke.
I appreciate it. I have no kids yet. We do have the puppy who just
Or babies
got
count.
neutered. So fur babies do count. I appreciate that. So let's get into it, Dan. Dan Diaz. So I wanted, first of all, before we got into everything, you interviewed me for your podcast recently. And so, first of all, I kind of wanted you to explain what that was to kind of um, give people context of one of the last like longer conversations that we had had. I mean, we've texted and had calls here and there, like short discussions about music here and there, and all of that. So just curious with the podcast, what um, was sort of your reasoning for starting one in the first place?
Yeah, so that's a great question for a few reasons, right? There's the surface of it, but then also it's like, why make another podcast when there's just so many? And one of the things that I found interesting, like for instance, I really like Bill Burr's podcast, and it's just by himself and he's rambling. But one of the things I like the most about it is he talks about his world, like stand-up comedy, feel like he has his TV show, his whatever, and he's an older dude, so his outlook on life. I love kind of hearing as a creative, kind of, I don't know if it's left or whatever the right side of the brain is for creativity, but that side of his brain, I respect and look up to facets of the way he thinks. And I like when I thought about a podcast, I was like, it seems like it would be really cool to like, what is it about where you the world that you and I live in, or what we do, that would be interesting to other people. And like the premise of, or the idea and hope of making a podcast would be to kind of give other people a look behind the behind the sheet or the cover, if you will, of like, we're normal people, but like the music world creatives think a certain way or differently, or in this kind of realm, and the things that we do or the things that we talk about, even like, I don't think about it this way, but like musicese or something, where the terms where we refer to, or the way even business is done, like I thought it'd be really cool to just share that with people, to
Yeah.
make it more accessible and less like of an unknown, you know? And that's kind of, I just took off from there.
Well, and honestly, your being on your podcast, because like you said, I've listened to a million of them, but for some reason, just like television shows and stuff like that, I feel like part of the appeal in podcasts is the holy shit, like I could do that, you know, a little bit of that sort of the participation culture. And I think like we're in a year of participation, whether it's you look at the platforms like TikTok, and I mean, people want to be a part of the process. And I think part of being a part of the process is having discussions like these in an open forum, and a big
Yeah,
and your having that discussion was a big reason why I wanted to do this tonight, which was why you were at the top of my list of like who should I hit up. And I feel like it was only right and a full circle kind of moment to bring on the person who sort of inspired me for that. And before this whole thing is through, we got to make sure that we link people to the podcast, or at least be able to
cool, yeah,
explain them
sure.
how to find it. But basically, you know, we're hosting this on Twitch. You love video games. I love video games. A big part of the discussions that's going to be happening on these Hell Yes talks, which Hell Yes for just like if it's not a hell yes, like why are you doing it? Like why are you just focusing on it? The whole thing is like things that you're just like stoked, happy, positive about. Hell yes was kind of the vibe, whether it's being positive for change, being positive for the new Call of Duty that's coming out, which I know like all of my friends in the chat are big fans of. So what I was going to ask you was, what like do video games and music ever in your mind like cross at all beyond just like I know that we have a friendship where it's like a bunch of our friends talk about video games all the time, and so you know, but in the music business in general, people might be like, oh, that's like a little bit like something you shouldn't do is like mix that sort of like that fun part of it with business. So I guess just in your head, like where do video games kind of have a place in your life as a musician and creative?
You know, it's like really funny that you asked that, because for a long time they never really intersected. Like I was in my group of friends, if I was the like my friends who I played video games with, I was the lone like serious musician, or what producer, whatever. And then within my group of musician friends, I was the irresponsible musician because I liked video games. So I kind of like teetered between both worlds, like never really home anywhere. And honestly, it wasn't until like we started playing and just kind of like linking with all these homies, like the circle of pals, like did those two worlds really get to intersect? Where it's like, wait, holy shit! Like you're into music and like you're an A&R, like you're the real deal, but you like Apex for real? You play Call of Duty from time to time? Like what? Like this is kind of, if I'm being completely honest, it's kind of newer territory, and I'm like all about it. I love it because it's a great way to unwind, but we're all like kind of even empathetic in a interesting way of just like if you have a weird day or something, it's like, nah, I kind of get it. All right, let's just play.
Totally. Yo, Mud, thank you for rating. Earlier, we did not welcome Baltimore into the chat. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, Mud's here. Thank you for shouting him out, Wally. Wally World. Um, Mud's a great Call of Duty player and has been a great addition to the fire team, people that we were just talking about. Got to stretch. So when you're a guest, you also have to do the thing that's on there. Mud just redeemed stretch, so now you have to stretch. Yeah.
Stretch.
Just a reminder to do things that are healthy for you. You know.
Oh, this is very kind.
Don't speak too soon. He might redeem 5 more of them throughout this whole chat. So.
Dude, then I will be limber AF.
And this is the other thing is like but what you just said is the thing that's drawn me to Twitch in the first place. And this isn't some like promotion around Twitch. Oh my god, we got to drink water too. 2 sips of water.
2? I got you, bitch. Hold tight.
Dude, Mud, you're gonna get your you guys are gonna get. I'm standing, so my posture is good right now. I'm like as like straight up as it can get.
Wait, I don't.
Welcome to the game show where it's how messed up can you get during a conversation? No, I 100% need to make channel points more expensive. I'm well aware, but we will navigate this. So Twitch is been a big deal for me, but I was going to ask, like, how much time have you spent on Twitch? Like, is this sort of like your first time really like looking at it? I know a lot of people have been talking about it for not only gaming but music stuff, but like, how much time do you spend on Twitch?
Yeah. So, I mean, I will watch some. There's like for some Call of Duty stuff or whatever. Like if I'm doing like mindless editing, a lot of times I can kind of watch like Twitch a little bit because it's like a lot of repetition. Or I'm looking at transients. I don't need to hear what I'm seeing. I can just look at it. So like I've watched like some of the only really like big Twitch person I'll kind of watch from time to time is that guy Nick Merckx. But like I follow you. I follow Reggie. I follow Baltimore and Mr. Young Robot. I follow Kayvon and Andy, Iron Maester. And I'll watch some of your guys' stuff, like replays and stuff like that. I mean, I know it's not a shameless self-plug, but plugging it up,
yeah,
guys are cool.
No, I love it. No, and I mean, you mentioned Mercs, and I was going to ask you, like, how have you looked into the music section at all on Twitch? Like,
no,
because
not really.
a lot of the people you mentioned were gaming. Because something like for me that I thought about Twitch for a long time was like, oh, it's just a gaming platform. And like, yeah, they do some music stuff, but it's got to be like just DJs and stuff. But I found some like really great singers, honestly, on the platform, and and it's less of like, oh, I'm trying to find like the next big star or whatever on Twitch. It's more of like, Baltimore will yell at you if you self promote. There you go. It's more of like it's community building. Like I'm having so much fun like building my own community. And I have like so much less talent than you and like most of my friends as far as like music, like the actual creation of music, like that part of it. Like I'm like emotional about it. I'm like that sounds too like like cool or like that's a vibe or whatever. Like I'm not like technical about it. Where you were just talking about transients and I'm just like I think I know what you're talking about, but it's like I don't really actually know. I'm just like kind of like, yeah, fascinating. So, but that's what I was gonna say was like, so
Yeah.
this transitions into music. For anybody who's on here that solely looks at gaming, please go check out the music section. There's tons of talented people, and encourage your friends who are artists and producers like Dan um, to just potentially look into it and to potentially streaming themselves. And I think that starts by watching other and supporting other people too. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about where music started for you, because I remember you mentioning like music coming into your life pretty early.
Hmm.
But do you remember what your first memory of music is in general?
Um, it's hard to answer with like a specific moment, if you will, but I think it would be more of like an impression overall.
Yeah.
My parents were obsessed with music growing up, and they listened to like so. My mom's Italian and my dad's Venezuelan. My mom met my dad when she was teaching English in Venezuela, and so they were very like eclectic South American like kind of taste and whatnot. So when I remember early music, I feel like I remember really crappy like CCM Christian music, and then I remember like flamenco, bro, like for real, like just like the random, and then like Enya and shit like that, just like so random.
Who listened to Enya?
Uh,
Who was it that was playing Enya in the house, or was that
probably
his?
probably my dad.
Really, that's funny.
Yeah.
My mom was obsessed with Enya, and maybe my dad got her into it. I don't know, but it like I remember Enya being a big part of my life too.
Yeah,
Shout out to Enya.
which is funny too because like I couldn't even tell you one of her songs, but I just remember it always being like
Well, it's got a
ah,
vibe. Yeah, it's very
and pretty.
ah.
Yeah, it's just so
It's
it's like
like
ah.
it's like walking through a fairy rainforest.
Yo,
Just like yo, I
dude,
could
you're being like washed with the bath salts of fairy wings or
yeah,
whatever.
just sinking into it. Yeah. Does
Letting it
Enya
happen.
sing Only Time, or is that someone else? I'm pretty sure that's Enya. I'm pretty sure that's like Enya's biggest song is that Only Time or whatever,
I mean,
which
if
was
I was,
which has been covered multiple times in less rainforesty, dreamy ways.
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Fun fact.
I only know the one. um, yeah, exactly, Alex.
What
Or
happened? Does Enya?
he said, "I don't think I know any other Enya songs." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think I
Like
do."
Enya is a vibe. You don't need to know songs.
Exactly.
Enya is bigger than any one song.
Like if you think about what's that Disney movie with all the blue people that connect their private parts to animals? Avatar? Yeah, Avatar.
For some reason, the first thing that came to mind was Smurfs. I don't know why.
Tell me how Smurfs connect their
Well,
private parts.
you said blue people and private parts, and then I thought of like all of these like messed up like YouTube videos that exist, and I was just like,
Yeah.
what? Anyways, we're moving off of that. What kind of stream is this? This is a stream of consciousness, is what it is.
Oh, that's deep, bro.
Yes,
Correct. Thank you, young robot.
not safe for work. Well, good thing most of you are out of work right now. So, or not out of work, like out of a job, like you're not at work right now. Sorry
Currently
for any of my friends who are currently unemployed, feeling for you and for everyone. So the no, so but back to what you were saying.
yeah,
You're
like
listening to CCM. You're listening to flamenco music and Enya.
yeah.
So that's a pretty already eclectic like group of music, but like from there, I guess, like when was the point where you're like, oh, this isn't just like a thing that happens, like
Yeah.
that just exists, like people make this stuff. Was there ever like a moment for you where you were like, oh, like where you connected those dots, or
Yeah, I mean, so without making a long story longer, I do remember my mom singing like in choir, like vividly. I remember being stuck at practices late at night, or like I'd have to record with a little tape recorder, like, and I remember sitting there just like holding it, like falling asleep. And then I remember my mom practicing to that, like the act of practicing and like go like seeing her put in like she worked a full-time job. She worked 60 hours a week, but then she would make time for that. I kind of remember that. And I think there's a subconscious connection there, you know?
What was
And
she
then
doing? What was she doing with the tape recorder?
so she would sing at choir, like she would have practice, and then she would basically force me to record the practice. So, where you press the orange button with the gray button on the recorder.
Yeah, a job that
Yeah.
a child could do, right? So she trusted
Yeah,
you with that.
perfect. And so I would record the rehearsal, and then she would listen back and sing along, like on the way to taking me to school or something like that. And so I think there's even a subconscious like connection of the demand of performing or delivering plus the sweat equity that goes into it to be on par with what's expected. I think there was some of that there. And then my parents made me play piano when I was little, and that didn't go well. And then when I was in middle school, they made me play trumpet. That didn't go well either. And then when I was in high school is when like I found like the bass guitar basically. And I think that was the moment, like literally our youth pastor was doing a youth pastor job and the music guy job, but he was giving free bass and guitar lessons. The church had a bass, and they were like, "Hey, free lessons, and there's a free instrument so you can use it." And my mom was like, "Hey, do you want to try this?" Like really nonchalantly, like, "Hey, do you want to try it?" Like last ditch effort. And I was just like, "Yeah, whatever, can't hurt." So I
What
go,
do you think she would have made you do if you didn't pick up on the bass? Like if you were like, nah, this isn't for me either.
I don't know, man. I'd probably be like a teacher or something, like in a college or a high school or something, just like drinking in the teachers lounge, like pouring whiskey in my
Oh
coffee.
no!
Like,
Don't do that.
I'd be one of those, like my half my shirt's like sticking out because I don't want to tuck it in.
You'd be
Like
like, have you listened to Enya?
I haven't found any new music because none of my friends are cool.
Yeah, because I didn't pick up the bass. Your life would have been very different.
Yeah, I
And
mean it's
it sounds like you have a very dark understanding of what that would have been had it not been for the bass. So let's go to Happy Land and talk about the bass and
Happy Land.
where did Happy Land take you?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of crazy because like literally the first day, I remember my first lesson. Like I could teach my first lesson to someone. I could write down just about everything that was on paper for me to take home. I remember every single thing. Like I could tell you funny things about it, even just like things that my teacher taught me that were wrong. But it made such an impact on me, and I made such a connection in that moment. I was just like, fuck, like immediately, just like, yeah. Like, so it was a 30-minute lesson, and I shit you not, I made my mom stay at our church for 30 more minutes while I went over everything I learned. And it was like not anything cool, but I was so like connected that I literally think that was it for me. Like seriously.
And how long from that moment to your first band? Like, how long did that take? I feel like usually it's like not. It's usually not too long, but I'm curious in your case, given that like how it's sort of been a roller coaster for you of like
Yeah.
flamenco music to the choir to trying the trumpet, which I tried the trombone and my arms were too short. So
Really?
and I couldn't hit like some of the notes. I was having to like do this whole thing. And I remember the teacher being like, "Yeah, this isn't for you," and it was a very sad day.
Just took it away.
Yeah.
Dude, maybe you missed your calling in Muay Thai though, bro. That shoulder was pretty tight.
Thanks. I'll have to check. I'll have to check it out at some point. When I get a little bit tougher, I feel like I'm a baby about this stuff. We talk about this all the time. You're like I just got done like beating up like 5 giant bags full of sand.
Whatever.
What did you do? And I'm like, I fucking stood up today. Like, like really.
That's a victory.
Yeah. So it's just like, no.
I can answer your question. I remember it.
I was like, I don't even remember what the question was.
I got you. Yeah. So like from that point to like where I was in my first band, I was a sophomore in high school when I like re-encountered music through the bass. I think by the time I was a senior in high school, I was like playing in like the youth group band and at church. So I think it was pretty much a year of me being complete dog shit and working really hard to like scrape by with some songs, and then they let me start playing like at church. I mean, I was, I knew nothing, so it's pretty bad. So I had to get to a point where it was like
Well, were
I could
you
keep up.
playing the bass from the church? Like, did they just let you
Yeah,
borrow it, but they were like, you can play it, but you just can't play it on the stage yet?
correct. Like literally they're like, we can't give this to you because this is the only bass the church owns, but we want you to be able to practice. As long as you can get here, you can use it. And so I shit you not, every single day I begged my mom to take me to church after school so I could play. And I didn't get to go every day, but literally like at least 3, 4 times a week, I was there of my own like pleading to like do that. So it was, yeah, it was like a year of just like that basically, before I was like in a band. My first like band was,
What were they called?
oh my god, okay.
And did you start it or did you join it? Because I feel like those are two totally different
Okay,
vibes.
so first band I started was for a singer songwriter named Dave Collins. You can't find his music on the internet. It's literally that old school.
Okay.
Uh, the first band I joined was a band called it was called Weapon of Choice.
Weapon of choice.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like
Speaking of
it was
video games.
I it was very much like a like kind of like maybe new metal, but wanting to be more metal than new. Like so, it was like lots of riffs, very heavy
And what
screaming.
what year was this?
2003, 2004,
Okay.
and but we had a DJ, so it's like a front man with Saucony's and like camo shorts and like a tight band T-shirt, ready to just like punch someone in the face in the pit, and then just like
With
a
hybrid theory and their like back pocket still.
yeah, and then like our guitar player was like a total like Dream Theater like prog rock like metalhead. He had like a huge like fro, like long hair, and just literally could shred. That's like all he wanted to do. It's a very very confused band at best.
So it's basically just everybody doing what they wanted to do just together.
For the most part,
Like
yeah.
not necessarily playing music collectively with the idea of like playing off of each other so much, but it's just like were you guys all like how was that dynamic? Like were like did you guys even was how did writing happen in a band like that? Was for the singer songwriter and then he would give you the parts, or was
Yeah,
it you or were you guys coming up with those things for him?
when I joined that band, big surprise, the bass player quit. So they had to teach me all the parts for those songs. And then once I like proved myself to be able to be in the band, I started writing with them. But like what I remember of the writing process was very much like how like kids would like jam really. And then like, hey, we have these like 6 riffs and parts that we've mushed into the battered remains of a song. Here's here it is, and then the vocalist would have to like, all right, I'm gonna write something to this, and so he put lyrics to it, and it was all just you know rah 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 breakdown.
There was a lot of screaming and breakdowns,
That's all it
and
was.
and DJ scratches.
And DJ scratches, yes.
Dude,
DJ
that's
scratches in breakdowns even.
I like it,
I'm just saying.
dude. I loved that music in that time frame. I loved it.
Yeah, but that
Rah,
was.
exactly.
I mean, that's what we were doing. That's what the writing process was like. The longer that band went on, the more it kind of evolved. But we were all just like clueless, even from a songwriting standpoint. I don't think anyone ever like, or if someone thought to like take the reins of like, hey, I'm gonna write this song, it was very much like, hey man, we do that as a band. What are you doing? Like, you don't write something about yourself. Like it's just immature. But I think that's how we thought about it. Yeah.
And then, I mean, so at what point and or how many bands did it take for you to start like, I guess, getting more hands on with that process? Sort of like because what you do now is a lot more methodical. You're thinking things out. You're planning it out. I think part of that is just getting older and realizing like what works and what doesn't in a sense. But like, was there sort of like a moment for you where you were like, oh, this I like I need to change. I needed to do something completely different. Like Was there like one moment, or was it like a collection of moments for you? Like,
I think so. After like the band thing early on didn't work out, like um, I started to like there were a lot of, I mean, dude, South Florida scene, there were a lot of really big bands that were supposed to like explode and never did. And when I started seeing that, and especially like within like the scene that we were in, I was just like, I this isn't for me, man. And I let myself really fall into like my studies at school because I was a music major, so I was like jazz emphasis, and I just like threw myself at that. And when I did that, it was more about becoming a killer in that world, and that was less about being in a band, but more of being able to just show up in any setting and just kick ass, you know. So I did that for a few years, and I think it was earlier in my like stumbling into production when I kind of realized like, okay, I think like the band thing could be cool, but I just haven't found like a real band that I want to be in yet, you know, until I did.
and then were so did you like go and work on production so that you could apply that to like did you have that in mind where you're like, okay, I'm gonna get good at this, and when I find a band, like I'm gonna be able to produce the band, or like what was, I guess, or did you, or were you just getting good at that thing because that's what was going to keep you busy, and then eventually you found a band, and then like, because sometimes the two things don't happen, right? Like sometimes you
Yeah,
end up in a band and you're kind of
yeah,
collaborating with another producer, like maybe you're producing the demos and somebody's finishing out the records, but like I guess in your mind, were you like, when you picked up production, did did you did you have a specific like goal in mind with production? Was it, I'm going to be a producer, or were you just still trying to just figure it out?
yeah. So I think the two happened at the same time on accident. So I started producing like literally in GarageBand, doing loops and this and that, and like, oh, I can pan and do this, and it was literally just a hobby. Like, this is fun. And then I joined like the first band that I thought was cool. Is a band called Crudbot, Crudbot. You can
Crudbot.
find Crudbot. Yeah, you can find that shit on the internet.
Oh, okay. We're gonna find that right now and link it to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people. Is it on Spotify?
I don't know. I'll look it up real quick.
Crudbot. Crudbot.
Crudbot. Yeah.
Sadie. Is that
Yeah, dude. That
okay?
sounds cool, man.
I'm gonna share that with people in here. So check out the first band that Dan was in that he actually liked. So, no, okay. So you were in Crudbot. So, but what was that
Okay,
process
so
like? Was that the same thing where did the bassist quit that band too?
no, like so like when I joined that band, it was just one guy who was writing all the songs, who's just like, he's actually a dude in town. He's based out of Franklin, and he is like, he was one of the dudes in my wedding. He's one of my best friends. He's like blood, and he's a fucking freak. He is so good at music. And when I met him back then, he was making like sick ass beats with tape machines and shit. Like, he's been in it just for forever, and he was doing everything. So when I met Jonathan and he was doing Crudbot, I was like the biggest fan. And he's just so sweet, like so kind, that he was just like, yeah, you want to like be in my band? And I was like, what? So I started playing with him, and then that's when like he was, man, if there was like a season really marked by someone looking at my potential and my actual skill and saying, hey man, you should connect these two dots, I would definitely attribute it to him. His IG is Click Limon. I can spell it in the.
Oh, go
I'll,
ahead. Yeah, you can drop that in the chat while I'm asking about this next question, which has to do with what you just said about like seeing potential and sort of like those light bulb moments. I feel like when you are working in the music business, your whole career is sort of marked by light bulb moments, right? Where you're
yeah,
sort of like, because in a certain sense, it's like you can, there's some things, and I think this goes with any job or any industry, where you kind of can go into cruise control, right?
yeah,
And you just kind of go, and then sometimes the light bulb is like some catastrophic thing, unfortunately, or sometimes it's something as simple as somebody connecting two dots that you never really connected before and been like, oh yeah, that, you know. And a lot of times it's like the craziest part is that a lot of times it's like obvious. It's like the obvious thing, right? In a way,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
clearly, you know, us looking back at it now, I think everybody's like, okay, like, well, why don't you just produce and do that, you know, on top of like, but produce your stuff and also whatever else you want to produce, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess like from Crudbot, like where, what happened from there, like when, like was there, did you end up being in like multiple bands at once, or did you end up sort of just going like band to band?
Man, I was in that band until it basically wasn't. And then there was like a period of time where like we also worked at the same place, and there was a period of time where we didn't. And when we didn't, we just kind of slipped out of touch, I would say. And then a few years later, we reconnected. And when we did, I was in uh, a new band, and that was the only band I had been in since Crudbot. And when I was in that band, John was working for Chris Caraba, and he engineered and mixed the Further Seems Forever Penny Black record, which was the last record Further Seems Forever did. That was like the reunion record with Chris Caraba and all the original Further guys, Josh Colbert, Nick Dominguez, so on and so forth. Um, and so my band went on tour with Further Seems Forever, and Chris was there. And then I was just so blown away by Chris. Not even because he's famous. It's like, well, yeah, but he was like the only dude I'd ever met up into that point in my life that was a professional, that had been around the world, that had such an even head about everything, about the performance of it, about the business of it, about the relational aspect of it. And he was so unbelievably kind to us that when we came back, I knew John was working for him. I called John and was basically like, dude, what do I have to do to be around you guys? Like seriously, I will throw out trash. I will go to the store and like I'll be like the lowliest intern if it means I can be in the room, you know? Like what does it take? And that was like a new kind of connection point that sparked it all. John relayed my info to Chris. I got a text message from a number I didn't have, and it was Chris. And he's basically like, call me and we'll talk. And so I talked with him and was just like kind of explained like, oh dude, I would just love to learn from you guys and be around you guys. John's one of my best friends like on the planet. I mean, and I have so much respect for him. I have respect for you. That tour broke my brain. What do I have to do? And that was like, honestly, that was like that was the first big step towards being like, I'm a producer. I take my job seriously. I take getting good sound seriously. I take your creative vision and bringing it to fruition seriously. Like me really stepping into myself outside of a band identity, my what my bandmates or the sound of them said I should sound like. That's when it really that whole thing started to happen. I didn't arrive there, but that was probably the catalyst, if you will.
And then, so that was, you said you were in Crudbot till it ended. Karaba had such like a profound impact on you. And then, so did you just, was that like the thing that you went right into starting to produce? Was that like the moment you started really like getting into producing bands that you weren't in? Or like, when did that start happening? Or were there
Man,
some more, or were there some more bands along the way that you joined?
when I joined, so the band that I was in when I toured with Further was this band called Civilian. And actually, the last body of work I had a decent amount of involvement with. I'm proud of that one too. Um, but that band, that was when I started realizing like getting my hands up. Like I started realizing like, oh, I should like start getting gear to like record people, and like, wait, people like my some of my ideas, and like you'll actually sing that thing and then you'll pay me money. I'm like, what? Like that's really when it started happening, like being in that band.
And I mean, Civilian, I remember living in Orlando, certainly like traveling to Orlando and hearing about Civilian, like just in the Florida scene. That probably, if there was a time we would have run into each other, that would have probably been around the time. but I don't think we really got to know each other until later, connecting dots from like whether it was Andy or Dana or the various other people in our lives that like
Yeah.
we're connected to.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but I guess because that's what I was curious about was like, did you? Because I remembered Andy specifically being like super. Um, he was being very vocal about your involvement in the recording and how just like impressed he was by it and your talent and the band's talent and everything and just Andy being the champion of great music and great people that he is like
Yeah.
there you know that thing I think people sometimes like overlook right because you're like I feel like people are like oh it's got to be we live in such a like a numbers based society, right? Like the first thing people do is they go look at Instagram or go look at streams or go look at whatever and be like they immediately have some kind of opinion about like what kind of band it is. Is it a successful band? Is it not? Or whatever. And I guess like for you, what do you feel like defines a successful band, an art project? Like if it's not numbers, if it's not money, like what do you think it is? Like taking that side of it out.
Yeah. I think I think success is ultimately determined by the individual and their view of it. Because my observation or my belief of success uh, cannot be imposed on someone else. And so, if 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 artist A says sits down in the room and they're like, I want to do a project, and I say, well, what's your vision? That's also saying like, what is your metric for success? What is it that you hope to attain with this? What are your goals? It's like a very loaded question, but it can be answered in any layer, and my ears are open for all of it, because I'm trying to translate. And I think in the same way, like much more simply, like success for anyone is measured in the same way of like, what is important to you? Is it viewership? Is it the numbers? Is it the metrics? Is it connecting with people? Is it saying something? Is it longevity? Like, do you want to make something that's going to be sick as fuck 50 years from now? Or do you want to make something that's going to make you a fuck ton of money next year and everyone will forget about you after that? Because those, they can coexist, you know, but it's few and far between where they do. And your, like, the artist or the individual's perspective and interpretation of success is going to be the determiner of how to value and use that metric against what's actually happening,
Yeah.
so
So up to the individual. No, I feel that, and you know, this is probably going to be my like most loaded question because I want to get into talking about stuff that you're working on right now and everything. But before I do, people something you just said about vision, people also talk about like the artist's responsibility for just documenting and reflecting the times. And we're living through some crazy
crazy.
times. So I guess for you, like, do you think about do you think about those things when deciding the projects that you work on? Like, do you have like, is there a difference to you between like the stuff that you feel like has vision and the stuff that just is gonna like you know being somebody who's like needing to who's doing the 9 to 5 or you know really the like 8 to 11 or whatever you pass out sometimes the lifestyle of doing what you do you know that you were just talking about that those things coexist and I feel like nowhere is that more true than when a producer has to kind of pick and choose what projects they take on so what is it do you think about those things and they're the you mentioned caring about their vision but do you think about the effect that they want to make when considering the project or is it more
Yeah.
about like if it's like you're not stoked on it, it's like you better pay me more money, or like what is your mentality when it comes to taking
Yeah.
on projects?
um my answer may change in a month or a year or
That's
whatever,
fine. We'll do it. We'll do this interview again, and we'll play them
but
next to each other.
right now, currently, I would say I'm not really in a position to say no to a lot. If it's something that I know is just completely wrong, will cause problems for my family, or will be like venomous or poisonous to like my health or my mental health, I will turn it down. So if it's someone who's like far too demanding or far too like cantankerous or something, like it just won't happen. You know, like I cannot destroy this and my family for money. It just won't fucking happen. On the flip side, what I do is for the things I do say yes to, there's so much grace in that answer for me because it's the artist's art. It's not mine. I am here to serve that artist. So if it's a surface value thing, my bandwidth internally adjusts for that. You want to talk about like I'm something super shallow, I'll go there with you. That's okay. You know, like if that's your vision, let's do it. If you want to like talk about social injustice and like what is happening like in front of us and what people think Trump's a Christian or some shit. Let's fucking go there too. You know, like I'm here for it, you know? Like I will adjust internally my bandwidth to meet you where the need is for the art because if I don't do that and I give the person who wants to do the song about like, slapping hoes or some shit, like if I give you the bandwidth of the person who's trying to talk about racial inequality, I'm going to burn out really fast. Like really fast, because I'm going to care too much about something in a way that the artist doesn't care about it. And I don't want to do that to myself, let alone I'd probably just end up angry. Like, don't you care about this more? And he's like, nah, bro, I was high when I wrote it, whatever. Like that bandwidth isn't there. So personally, I just adjust and adapt for wherever the artists need and wherever their vision is. I think, and that full circle is how how I approach that is how I like answer that question as
Yeah.
well.
No, I get that. And I mean, do you ever feel like so like I guess it just matters like how sincere they're being about the approach, I guess, where it's like whether it's, if you're gonna, like you said, talk about some like I guess real shit for lack of a better word, it's like
Yeah.
you better actually care about it, not just be just sort of moonlighting and taking advantage of like the
Yeah.
situation or whatever
Dude,
for and
I'll
I but I
I'll give
feel but I feel like there's a lot of that in music, right? Like there's a lot of people that sort of just take advantage. So that's why I was really curious what your answer was, and it
yeah.
sounds like you sort of rest on sincerity over
Yeah, I mean, and my sincerity, your stance on it does not impact where mine is. So if you are insincere or like you're not as reverent, if you will, towards a certain topic, I can adapt to that. That doesn't bother me. But like, if you come to me saying like, "Yo, I'm ready to swing for the fences for this social injustice," I'm your champion, bro. I'm right up there with you. Like for instance, can I prop up an artist real quick?
Yeah, of course.
So
That's
there's
what
this
that's what
guy,
this whole thing's about.
so there's this guy, his name's ooh, I thought I sent this other thing here with Click Limon, man. Oh dude.
Did you never hit send?
I
I,
thought I
I
did.
do that all the time where I like write something into, usually it's a text, or I'll like respond to the text in my head, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I sent that.
I didn't realize you had to press send.
Yeah,
Well, anyways, this
well,
this
that's
guy's name
Instagram. Yeah.
his, his name is UJ Baird, and I'll type it here: UJAY_BAIRD. Um, dude, this guy is literally from Liberia. When he grew up, he was born in a civil war. His parents were killed, and he was adopted by a white family from Southern California, whose dad happens to be a pastor. So this kid, who's 7 years old, had never seen white people till he was adopted.
That's insane.
Grows up in Southern California.
Well, I mean, not insane that he hasn't seen white people, but just like
Totally
it's just insane.
crazy, crazy,
Just the culture shock that's got to be.
dude. It's so layered, man. There's so much stuff. It's wild. But like, so he moves to Southern California, and then he ends up and he meets his wife basically through like a Bible college that he went to, and he moves out to Nashville, and I meet him in Nashville, and like this guy has some shit to say. Like when we talk about like the injustice towards the way Black people are being treated in our culture, there's even layers to that. And you know who has something to say about it? This fucking kid, the kid born in the Civil War whose parents were murdered and was raised by white people in a town that's mostly white people. He's like the only Black kid in his school, you know, like, and like this guy when he's like, yeah, I want to like I want to talk about this. I'm like, yo, dude, let's fucking go. I'm like, stand on my shoulders if you need to, you know, like I can do like 10 push-ups, you know, like let's go. Like that's the kind of guy when he's like, I got something to say. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's do this thing, you know, because like if I do anything that matters, like it's gonna be supporting artists like that, you know, people who have something to say, and help them say it in a way where people who wouldn't be open to receiving that or hearing it, or it's not necessarily accessible to them because maybe they would never interact, but the medium of music connects the dots, dude. That is literally why I'm here. It's got to be, you know. So my
No,
tangent aside.
no, I love that, man. And it's like, I guess you mentioned your family a couple times in the conversation. I promise I want to get back because that is a project you worked on, right? The UJ Bear, but um, with being a producer, being a family guy, and caring deeply about those things and how much of a like just the demand of your time just those two things alone take, let alone the other things that you find time for somehow, whether it's like the martial arts stuff that you do, um, or video games, or like anything else that you're able to accomplish. I feel like even going to the store can be a challenging thing to like fit in time for, like in all of that. So how, I feel like, but at the same on the same, you do it, but a lot of people make the excuse like, oh, I can't make producing my job, or I can't do this, or I can't take on projects that are meaningful, that I feel like matter, because I've got to pay the bills, or I just don't have the time, or whatever. And I guess like, one, how do you manage your time and make all of those things happen? I feel like a busy person. I feel like you're busier than me, and I just wonder, what would you say to somebody who wants to do what you do, but is sort of like, I just don't really, I can't find the time for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I am married, right? I do have 3 kids. My plate is full. But if you're single, you don't have that. If you're married, I can speak to both sides. The one thing I would say is, on the married side, is my wife, like Natalie, is very supportive of me and what I do. When we moved here 6 years ago, she told me for the first year, don't worry about getting like a job at Starbucks. Just meet people and do your thing. Like that was massive. You know, like a lot of those people I don't still talk to. I don't remember half of the people that I met and so on and so forth. I mean, that isn't of consequence. More so, I have at home a team that believes in me. My parents believe in me. So if you're not married and there's someone in your corner, your sister, your brother, your cousin, and there's someone that's cheering you on, that's going to support you, lean into that, man. Lean into your home team. That'd be the first thing I say. The second thing I'd say is not really a fun thing, and I don't always get it right. But I think it's important. If you really look at yourself and you look at how you spend your time and your money, and I know you can attest to this, Chris, if you really look at yourself and you look at your habits in your life and what it is that you do what you want to do. So people who say, I don't have time, okay, okay, take a second, step back, and really look at yourself. Look at your habits. Like I said, look at the things that take it, because everything steals from you. You know, everything is slowly taking. All right. And I would just encourage you, like, this isn't to make anyone feel bad. It's more so to say, like, reevaluate. Like, if you want to become a painter and you feel like your 9 to 5 makes you so tired, but you drive to fucking Tesla, yo, dog, save up for 2 months and buy a fucking Ford Focus for 6 grand. Get out of the Tesla and use that extra money to save up so you can start buying paint materials and on the weekend paint, you know? Like where there's a like it sounds so trite and I hate saying it. But really, where there's a will, there's a way. If you really want to do something, you're going to do it. Like if it's more important to have followers, to have social exposure for being a kick-ass realtor, but you want to write, what's more important? What's more important? Sling a few houses and then write. Like give something up so you can do the thing that you love. And I mean, everyone that I look up to, everyone that I respect who's like way older than me has had that incubation period where it was just nothing but like sacrifice and investment. You know, like saying no to one thing so they could say yes to something because they believed 10, 20 years later it was going to pay off. And it doesn't always, but that's where you're like that whole thing of even your vision, right? Your vision for yourself, that's where it pays off, you know? So for someone who's asking like how can I'm stuck doing something I hate, how do I end up doing something that I love? I say one, find your community, find your people who will support you, who will lean in on you, you know? Like if you want to start your Twitch channel, start your Twitch channel and get your 15 friends to fucking follow you, man. It's not hard, you know? And do it. Just do it. You know, right? Just do it and do it as much as you can and have fun. You know, don't do it because like this guy says it's cool or that guy says it's cool. It's like you really got to do something that you like. You know, like we like playing video games, so it makes sense why half of our friends are like streamers on Twitch now. You know, like duh, right?
Yeah, we're
Like
probably gonna end up rating one of them for sure after this thing. But
yeah,
but like you said, I mean, it's true about the where's the will, there's a way. But like I remember, getting told it was like the just like don't like ever ask somebody what they want to do, for the rest of their life. Just watch how they spend their spare time, and it sort of gives you like good insight into like what they like, what they care about, and everything, And
yeah,
I feel like that I just can't get said enough because we just talked about it earlier. The power of those like simple like light bulb aha kind of moments. It's like we're it may feel like stating the obvious at a certain point, but somebody might not have ever heard what you just said about like leaning into the home team and everything like that, because I think we do that a lot. We discount our friends, we discount our families sometimes because you're like, oh, like, you just like me because you have to or something. It's not true.
no, yeah,
It's
no.
really not true. You and I talk about this all the time from like a mental standpoint about just that, like that the feeling of like obligation, like, that it's not like how that can be a negative thing. But the reality is with family and with friends is like the, I feel like sometimes when you don't take them up on that advice or like lean in on them, it's pretty selfish because you're kind of like robbing them of the chance to support you and be fulfilled by doing that. But
Huge.
two, it's completely discounting the possibility that like what they say could really make a difference. And most of the time, you look back at what a parent says or a friend says or whatever, somebody that you love and respect and cares about you, a lot of times you look back and you're like, man, they were right. Like you might not have understood it at the time, but like they just have a different perspective on it. And sometimes we're too close to this stuff that it's easy for us to get in our heads, and be like, oh yeah, I don't have the time for that. And then somebody like you to be like, well, what about your Tesla? Do you need that? Like, why don't you sell that and like quit your job for 6 months and go just paint and do, like have a gallery opening and then go back to work or something, just like you know, not everybody in this chat, or definitely not me, has a Tesla. But your point is taken in that, like, if there's a will, there's a way in that sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, going back to the, you know, not just like the concept of finding time to make this stuff, like, what are you making and how are you making it in, like, during these times, like how many, because I know I used to go to sessions like pretty much like every other night or every night, and now I've taken 5 meetings in person this entire time. I've done so many Zoom meetings, I couldn't even tell you how many. And this is going to be, you know, this is episode 1, but this is like Zoom call number 9,999. So, how are you making music, and are you being? Do you feel like you're being held back, or do you enjoy the challenge?
I mean, so to be frank, like to be quite honest, we're pretty careful, but we still kind of get around. Like I'm not going to restaurants. I'm not going to bars. Like I don't have time for that shit. But like we have like there's a small handful of people who come over for sessions here, and I get tested weekly. So we're like keeping a close eye on our health. My mom is coming in town in November, and she literally checks off like every single risk factor for this thing. So like we take it very seriously, making sure that we're safe. On the heels of that, though, I'm still having like sessions and stuff. I'm just being really careful about who comes through. I've even had like cases where someone's like, "Man, I'm not feeling so hot, but it's just this," and I'm like, "Hey, we're gonna reschedule. You go ahead and get tested. You send me a screenshot of those test results when you get them, and if you're good, we'll keep up our reschedule. You know, that's a week from now or whatever, because the testing is so fast, and you get a response within 24 hours. I'd rather be safe than sorry, you know?
Yeah.
If someone's like, and my allergies are going nuts too, you know? Like, so I want to know, is it my allergies or do I got this damn virus, you know? So
Hey, don't look at WebMD. That'll
I know, right?
mess up
Jeez.
your day.
And that's why I get tested too, because my brain will go nuts and I'll just have a panic attack and my guts will explode and I'll just pass out, you know? So, to answer your question, staying
It
productive.
sounds like spontaneous combustion.
I mean, I've also been like this year. I really got into making library music, which is kind of cool because like I've always loved like Sigur Ross and like Jonesy and
Yeah,
just like
for people on here that don't know what library music is it music that is exclusively made for libraries, or what do you mean by that?
yeah. So in this case, it would be like, hey, here's a theme, like a sound or whatever. We want you to build like essentially like a full blown record, like 15 songs, and we're gonna take these 15 songs, we're gonna mix them, but we're gonna take all your stems, and they put that up for sale on like a massive like library with a ton of other collections, as it were, records, just that maybe similar, different, whatever, but just a massive myriad of options. We'll put it in this library. They promote it for a while, and like creatives, filmmakers, um, I, I, yeah, I mean like indie filmmakers, like not indie filmmakers, music producers, they will purchase those and use them at their bidding or however they see fit. So I got into that actually this year. Like I was working on one when COVID started to happen, and so I basically stumbled into like, oh shit, I can do this entirely by myself. And then for the things I need to outsource, I can send like, hey, here's the tracks. Can you put drums on this? Or here's the tracks. Can you play cello on this? Or you know whatever. Or if it's one person, hey, come over. You know we can mask up if we got to. We'll cut some stuff and then you bounce. You know like no big deal. So I've been able to do that, and that's been cool too because that has both sides of the coin. There's like a front end like bonus, if you will, and then there's the royalty on the back end or whatever. And so that's been a nice thing to stumble into this year for sure. Like it's kind of helped a lot.
It's awesome, and I mean, it's gotta. Do you feel like that's challenged you to maybe make music you weren't making before, or are you essentially just doing what you've always done, but now like it's just going to this library?
No, I think I think the pressure of someone paying like a lot of money for this stuff, and I think the opportunity to the better it is, the better it does. I put a lot of pressure on myself to like I'm going to explore. I'm going to mess with my own headspace. I'm going to watch movies or listen to music that kind of pushes me off my balance a little bit, and I'm going to allow myself to stumble. And so it's so like the last library I did took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I'm really proud of it because like the sound design in it alone is like, and this sounds so like self-praising or whatever, but I'm really
Yeah,
proud.
we're here to praise you right now. So
Wow,
praise away.
whatever, man. I'm just really proud of the sound design. You know, it's like a lot of capturing moments, and I'm just like, dude, I'm so glad I was recording that because I don't know how the fuck I did that, and it sounds super cool. You know, like a lot of moments of that, and I feel like that has made it like challenging because you can't recreate that. It's almost like a habit that I have to start allowing myself to fall into, giving myself permission to like create and stumble and find these like different ways of making sounds, and then being willing to admit it, you know, like I'm not some music guru, like I'm just willing to to mess up and stumble and find something and just be like, that's it, that's cool, let's do that, you know.
But and I guess there's this, I think a lot of people have, I mean, with any kind of art, right? Like a lot of people like have this sense that you go in and you have the idea and you put it down exactly as that idea exists in paper, on a canvas, in your preferred DAW, into a microphone, onto a stage, you know, like people have that conception, but it's not always. It sounds like there's also what you were saying about that, like that risk of like just going and taking risks and trying things. And sort of like it's like the mistakes that kind of like make the thing like be. It's almost like better than what you kind of imagined in your head.
Yeah,
In a way, it's almost like remembering or whatever. Like I think there's like a Tom Petty um, quote about like it's like he was like remembering the songs like as they were being written.
mm.
It wasn't like he just like wrote them into existence. So I just thought that that was an interesting kind of take, and what you just said reminded me of that quote. So I guess like with the new going back, it's like all the way from flamenco music and Enya to being in your bands that you were in and playing in, which by the way, one of the bands that you played in, that's still my like favorite band name that we didn't get to talk a whole lot about was Diarrhea Planet. And that's still one of the best band names ever.
Agreed.
One of the most disgusting band names,
Also agreed.
but also great. And weirdly, like the band sounded like the name in a
Yeah,
way. It was like majestic and rounded out, and also kind of like shitty,
lumpy.
but in the best way.
And the best
And
satisfying.
and Baltimore, by the way, says Dan for president. So there you go. You
Love you,
the
Baltimore.
the So going back to just new music, the stuff that you're making, because you were in bands making music, or have you thought about like when the world goes to this new normal that is hopefully more accepting, more tolerant, more and changed for the better, so that all people can be, specifically people who have been oppressed for a long periods of time, and just continuously get beat up by laws. Once we go to a world that hopefully changes into a place for the better for everyone, truly everyone, what do you see yourself continuing to do as a producer, and do you plan on touring again, or being, or starting a band, or joining a band? Like, do you ever see yourself doing those things?
Man, I mean, I'm open to it. It seems unfair to my family to say that I can open that chapter of my life again, but I'd also be lying to myself if I said if I didn't admit that I miss it a lot. You know, like especially like Diarrhea Planet was like easily hands down like the most fun band to be in. Like those boys had done a ton of sweat equity, and when I got to inherit that essentially, and they allowed me to be a part of it for a season, like that was really fun to like jump into. I mean, we did a 2 night residency for New Year's Eve on from 2017 to 2018. Like I rang in the new year like crowd surfing. Like that's that's so cool. Like you go to Warp Tour, you say, "Oh, I want to do that one day," you know, and then you do something that's like kind of rad. You're like, "Whoa!" So of course I miss that, you know. But like, I mean, the last tour I did, my daughter was born 2 months before I left. So, and when I came back, she was halfway into her 4th month of being alive. I missed 6 weeks of her life in the first 4 months of it, you know, and it's just that was a big sacrifice, and it affected my wife too. And I just like I kind of saw how that even hurt me in a deep way, and I just had to like make peace with letting that part of myself kind of die a little bit, even if it was just for my family, you know? And I'm open to doing it again, you know, because it's so fun, but it's got to be right. So I wouldn't necessarily say no, and I won't say yes immediately either, you know?
Yeah,
Like
you got a lot more stuff to think about now.
I mean, I love performing. Like, I hate going to a show where everyone's just like standing there, you know? Like, I like the best show, like the scene we grew up in, the best shows are when the band is just going fucking nuts and the crowd is too, you know? Like, even if it's like whatever, like, I don't know, like fucking Travis Scott and everybody's like, yeah, you know, like that's insane to me. And I love that. I love that energy. I love being a part of it. I don't know to what capacity I'll ever become a part of it again, or if I'll get to do it, but I'm definitely open to it, you know? We'll see.
No, I love that, and I mean, I think that speaks a lot to just like maturity, right, and the way that we look at things differently as, and I don't even say as we get older. It's just as your sort of your what you value shifts in a way, right? It's like you value that time that you have with your family and with your daughter and everything, and it's like you're gonna weigh that differently than you would have, if that wasn't there. And I think obviously that just speaks a lot to the kind of person that you are. And I know that it's one of those things again where it's like sometimes when you're like looking at the kid or something. I don't have a kid, but I would imagine if you're looking at the kid, you're like,
Or babies count.
would you even remember this or whatever? But it's like it's a real impact and feeling, and you clearly have that. I know that there's some other dads in the chat that could probably attest to like looking at their kid and just being like, do you know what's happening right now? Like, could I be gone for like a month, and would you care if I was gone or whatever? And I think the answer is yeah. In a certain sense, I just think it just looks and feels different. So, I guess what kind of music that you're not making is like inspiring you right now? Like what, like, and specifically new music, like that's coming out that you're like, wow, that's really cool, or like is just or is changing the way that you think about music? Like, has there been a song or an artist or an album that's made you think differently about the things you're making?
Man,
And it can be multiple. It doesn't have to be just one. Like I didn't want to go with the like who's your favorite artist of all time
no,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. That's a cool question too, man. Jeez, you ask great questions, man. I feel like our interview, I was like, "What's your favorite color?" And you're like, "Like these odds."
But
Dude, I love
to be fair, I did ask you what your favorite color was, and but
whatever.
you gave me I gave you light blue on your social post.
I
So
was good with it.
yeah, so we got the easy question out of the way.
um, so it's not, and this I don't know if this is bad or good. It's not like brand new by any means whatsoever. But like two things recently that I've heard that have kind of like made me go, yo. Um, Jonesy's most recent body work of art is like it's just unfair how beautiful that shit is. It's so just big and encompassing. It's like what's that Bon Iver record with that song Creeks on it or whatever? You know what I'm talking
You're
about?
talking about for Emma?
Yeah, dude. Those sorts of things when you hear them, and especially when you hear them with like good headphones on or like in a studio environment, there's so many spatial things happening. It's like without like putting heroin in my veins, I feel like I'm being transported somewhere, you
Wait,
know?
which song were you talking about again for from Bon Iver?
So the record that has that song Creeks on it, I can look it up real quick to be more specific. Um,
For some reason, but in any case, the but I'm really curious about you saying Jonesy.
22 a million.
Oh, it's 22 a million. Yeah, so that was the third album.
Yeah, I mean that I like I said, I know I'm late to the party, but that record still impacts me. But the Jonesy record, let's see here.
Is that Jonsi?
Yes, sir. Shiver is the name of the record. It came out this year. It's relatively, I mean, I guess October 2nd. Okay, it is new. Look at me, I'm cool. Um, but that, I mean, that is like the evolution of 22 million in my brain, where it's just like another step forward in just how the fuck do they make that sound? You know, what is does Icelandic water have crystal meth in it or something? Like what is happening right now that is just so this music is so inspired and beautiful. Like that part of my creativity leans into the beauty thing and he does it just so well. They like even over the course of like the Seguros like discography, like their evolution of finding sounds and you know what I'm saying, like creating performances. It's that's always been inspiring for me. I digress. And then I know again I'm late to the party, but I think Travis Scott, Astro World, and then Juice World, man, like rest in peace or whatever. That or for real. But his shit, that like, wait a minute, I can play guitar with trap music and it's okay? Like, what? It seems so trite, man. But like hearing that and then ultimately discovering Mike Dean, like the brain behind Travis Scott or whatever, that for me was like Mike Dean became like my new, like unofficial. I don't know you, but I look up to you as a musical mentor. You know, like the way that you think about music, the way that you approach music. Like he did this. He did an interview where it's a music interview. Like it's called Pensado's Place, and it's with Dave Pensado, who's like multi Grammy
Oh,
award
dude,
winning.
yeah, I've seen those Pensado interviews before.
Yeah,
They're dope.
Dave Pensado's no fucking joke. And Mike Dean goes on there, and mind you, Pro Tools is like a software that is like it is literally the tool of the pros. Like it is on every studio in Music Row. It's everyone, LA, New York, Miami. I mean, just everywhere. And he literally goes, "Does anyone does anybody want to buy my iMac Pro Tools rig? I'm tired of this shit. I'm unable to now." Like in the interview, bro. Like there's thousands of people watching this shit, and he's like dogging out. You know, I'm just like, dude, this guy has balls. He's so cool, and like the way he thinks about music, it's just he seems like a guy who's just always been down to just make a mistake, to turn that knob and see what happens. That discovery, that kind of inquisitive, and I feel like you hear that, like Astro World, that one song in particular, like too long. It's two songs in one. Like it starts off with that whole intro and it has like a different melody. And then when the beat drops, oh fuck, this is song number two, but it's all in the first thing. I was like, wait, you're allowed to do that shit too? And like when I heard all that, I was just like, let's go.
But
Let's go.
it's funny because you know you mentioned a few times now where you're like you hear something and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm allowed to do that. It's almost like that, like the creative license that exists there, and I feel like the people who tend to make the greatest art tend to be those people that are like, they're not really bound by whatever rules. Like I just watched a whole interview thing through work about with Todd Rundgren, and I didn't know much about him, but I knew a lot of the songs and stuff that he had been a part of, and a lot of the stuff was like, a lot of it he was just not even like it was just shit that was like so ahead of its time, and that inspired a lot of the stuff that like Bowie was doing, and like people who had that moment like you, like, oh shit, you're allowed to do that. Like this guy was like one of those people. Like he made a whole song that was just about like sounds, and he's like, if you hear this, it means like that it was recorded badly for this reason, and if you hear this sound, and he like plays the sounds, and he's like, okay, now like listen to whatever, like listen to this record, you play, it's like he made it like a game. Like he basically was like, look for these sounds. That's what that sound is on your
Oh,
record
sick.
and
That's
everything.
cool.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But
Yeah.
it was cool because I mean, and then artists like ended up sampling this stuff that he was doing, but also had that like, oh, I'm allowed to do this kind of moment. And maybe sometimes it wasn't the artist, sometimes it was the producer. And I feel like you kind of just stumbled on a big thing, which is like that's a lot of your job is sort of just like helping the artist sort of navigate. Like you don't have to do this thing. In fact, you probably shouldn't. You should really like try to break out of it and try something new and like take the risk, and see where it goes. Because it's uncharted territory, and you can do the same thing over and over, but you don't really grow that way. And unfortunately, I think sometimes we were talking about this on a stream earlier about how sometimes fans don't really have the like elasticity or whatever to like allow you to grow and change. But at the same time, like as much as they can kind of he and haw about it or whatever the term would be, it's like there's um, that's what makes special artists is they don't stick to a mold. I think that's what makes special producers. They don't stick to a mold because otherwise that stuff just like plays out.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, and also too, like, I mean, even within your job, like if the same bands that you represent and work for did the same thing year in and year out, I mean, how exciting is that to back? I mean, it's gonna get so stale, like you want artists to take chances, I imagine. Like in the same way that I should help be pushing them, you're probably even just like begging for it.
well, in some ways, but I think that's also the challenge. Is I think sometimes even on the business side, I think like people will be like, oh, we want a hit song, we want another version of the thing that like you did that was popular or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's I think what people are really saying when they say that is like, we just want to feel excited like that again about the
Ooh.
stuff that you're making. But I don't think it necessarily needs to look like the same. I think it's easy to kind of look at the song and break it down mathematically, right? Because
Yeah.
then you're kind of tapping into something that's like tangible, and you're not sort of dealing with like people's emotions and just quite frankly like the way the world is and like what's hot and what isn't, and like the way that the stars align and everything. So I think sometimes it's easier to just go to like, okay, well, what was the math of the song? And then it's easy to kind of get resentful at people who ask you to do that thing because suddenly you're like, okay, well, now you want me to be formulaic, but I know I want to try this thing, but I'm scared of letting those people down, but I'm also scared of failing and making something that I don't like or whatever it is, but you won't know until you try, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see how that's very scary. Like I've on this side, I've seen it's scary for the artist, and then I perceive like, yeah, when a business is investing money, it's like, well, hey, we have this many mouths to feed, including our own family. We really, I mean, we want you to be creative, but boy, do we want you to be successful too, man. It's like very like juxtaposed, like kind of bittersweet thing. And that's, I don't know, that's probably going to be like a never ending discussion and desire. I love your articulation of like how you interpret that. Like, how did you say that again? Because like they say, we want you to do this again, and you, how did you interpret that? That was really cool.
Like just well, like going back and just like looking at it like from a formula standpoint, because you're like chorus verse, like
Yeah,
you could do that, and like you could literally do like what a lot of Swedish writers will do, right, with pop and like make it formulaic, but that's the easy thing to go to because you can't really completely just replicate like, okay, well, what is everybody like really loving right now? What is everybody like, what's in the ether? It's like, it's almost like you kind of have to create and hope that the stars align and not be so worried about chasing success, because by the time you even get to the thing that you've identified, like people have moved on.
yeah,
So it's like you might as well go and like aim for somewhere else, and like people might meet you there. And if they don't, just love the thing that you made,
yeah,
and but it's not, it's easier said than done. It's like doing this as a job.
yeah. Of
It's
course.
like you're constantly like learning and reevaluating what you value in the things that you're doing. And I think a big thing that I'm thinking about, and it sounds like the same with you, is a lot of the like social change and justice and everything, and artists that want to say something that reflects the times. And I think valuing that more, or where you place value in the stuff you're making. Now I've made a more roundabout explanation of what I said before, because truly I'm constantly trying to articulate it, because
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is this constant like this, but this,
yeah.
and it's tough, man. But let's simplify it. Let's go all the way down to like we talked about the effect that music had on you as a kid, and now you have kids.
Uh-huh.
What kind of effect do you see music currently having on your kids? Like, what's a playlist? Like, what would be on a playlist that your kids would make right now?
Well, you asked two questions. You asked what do my kids listen to, and you asked how does music affect them. What music do my kids listen to? Um, let's see. It's not very cool, man. Like my kids like Moana and Frozen and shit. This is not my doing, by the way.
Dude, by the way, the Moana and Frozen songs, those things go hard. So,
Listen, okay, Moana's got like a bunch of tracks that are sick. I'll admit it. Fine, but and Frozen's just a fuck ton of earworms. I'll say that. But what's I'm gonna call it? I think there's like one or two bands that my kids like, but man, I'm gonna be real. It's hard to expose my kids to music because I think words are powerful, and because of that, I don't let them listen to as much music as I listen to,
so
and that
do
makes
they just listen to instrumental music?
no. We listen, so we have like calm down time where I have like a instrumental playlist that's like a lot of piano and like um I used to play a bunch of like ambient music, and it drove Natalie insane. Like she started yelling at me about it. She's like, "Oh, you listen to his music that goes oh."
Dude, you're like, it's not my fault that my dad listened to Enya.
Yeah, and it's also not my fault that I work all day with words and sounds, and I do like making intense music. So when I'm not working, I want to listen to like,
The opposite.
yeah, cellos and piano, please. So, but anyway, so my kids are well aware of like instrumental music, like calm stuff, and then they listen to like a handful of records. Like our church has put out some stuff. They listen to some of that, and then there's literally like a handful of records that they'll listen to. One of them, Pax calls it his band. It's like a very old band called Pax 217, and he's
Schmuck the Loyal loves Enya. Welcome, welcome.
dude.
This has been an Enya. This has been an Enya fan conversation. We're just here to discuss all things Enya. So name which of your favorite songs Enya goes, and we'll it's pretty much all of them. So
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll just
that's
tell you
why
the
we're such
title.
big fans.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. Oh, dude, Baltimore, PAX 217. It's like it was a thing, and it was super like hard back
So
in the day.
that was the band that Pax is saying is his band.
Dude, yeah, because his name is in the name of the band, so he calls it. I want to listen to my
Yeah,
band.
no one else can have his name,
No one
obviously.
else. No, impossible. But yeah, like so he'll listen to that band, and it's funny because it's like definitely like rap rock, I guess, or rap core, whatever it's called. So, but it's like with the reggae in it, like a lot of like upstrum guitars in the verse while the guy raps. And so when there's like a chorus where it like drops, he'll like air guitar or whatever. It's very cute. I'll say that.
So do you ever think about your son doing an interview like this years from now, and what music he's going to mention he remembers hearing first? Like, do you ever think about that, or are you literally just thinking about the developmental part of it? Like, do you think your parents thought that deeply about playing flamenco music around you? Like, was that their version of instrumental, chill, calm down time music?
So for my parents, it was 100% about the lyrics. Like they were very much like the words are like a pathway to our soul, and like whatever you put in your ears, you're like subliminally feeding yourself. And I don't hit the pain as hard as them, but I agree to some extent, which is why like my kids hear what I do all the time. So they hear like the weird instrumental shit. They hear synthesizers and like 808s and snared like trap snares and shit like heavy guitars like and Pax is like when if I go work with we call him Uncle Cam, but if I go work with Cam on the row or whatever, now it'll bring the kids and he's comfortable there. He just sits on the couch and like or he'll come up to the console and sit in the chair. Like they've been to the studio a billion times. They have good manners. They know how to act. Like it's pretty sick. And like, when I only go there when I'm working with like act like full bands because I don't have all that shit at my house. So they've seen that. I feel like when he thinks about music as a memory, I perceive that he would remember, me yelling at him, telling him to not play my road so hard, or like coming in here and like sitting on my lap and pressing spacebar to hear what I'm doing, or just stop my music while I'm working. Like, I feel like he'll have. Hopefully, I hope he has those kinds of memories. The good ones.
Dude, I mean, that's amazing. And, you've already been super gracious with your time and navigating the like first ever interview stream where, we're going to try to do this more often. And
Yeah, I love
I'm
it.
super, stoked for you. Hopefully, one of these days we can actually like listen to music again in the same room like we've gotten to do a few times.
Yeah,
And
I love
um,
doing that. By the way.
but in the meantime, we can I can go and just like get carried by you and Baltimore and everybody in a game of Call of Duty or something like that. So we've reached the point in the stream where we go and raid somebody, preferably somebody. If there's a singer that we know that's on, we would go and raid them. But because we opened this up talking about video games and supporting video games and people who play them, I think it's all open. So we should look on Twitch and see if there's somebody you're gonna help pick who we raid.
Okay,
So
let's.
and before I can continue, I mean you understand the concept of rating, right? I just want to make sure.
I do
Okay.
not.
So what we do, there's right now, there's I believe if this thing is correct, we're around 8 viewers right now that are still here watching us. And what we'll do is we'll go with those 8 viewers, we'll go and raid a channel that we think they might like, somebody who's currently streaming,
Oh, cool.
and they, whoa, that is loud. Hold on, that is loud. Um, Yeah, and so there's a handful of people that are on right now that I follow. Um, there's a singer named Faye, but they usually are doing singing, but they're doing a mic. They bought a microscope and they've been showing stuff under their microscope through some crazy like we had to go through hoops to try to figure out how to get the sound to work properly, right?
Yeah.
And
How are they looking at a fucking microscope, right?
yeah, I'm like, I don't even understand how that's happening right now. So I'm just trying to see if there's like, if you click on the music tab over where you are, Dan,
Hmm.
click on the music tab and then maybe, search the tag, search singing. And by the way, if anybody's here and you want to make a suggestion in the chat, please feel free to. I know Baltimore, he said he didn't have anybody. But you can, once you click on the music tab, you can click in the section that says search tags, and you can search like singing if you want us to rate a singer, or you could do producer if you want us to rate like a producer. Like there's a lot of DJs on, a lot of people doing spooky costume themed streams right now. There's a guy playing an accordion. Um,
It's awesome.
there's a guy. Well, it looks like it's a group. One's wearing a sombrero. Um, yeah. So do you see anything that looks interesting to you on your end?
No, not really. I mean, not because I don't know, like see anything interesting, but purely because I'm just clueless. Oh, here, I joined producer grind.
What is that?
I have no idea. I clicked on
Producer
it somehow.
grind.
Yeah, producer grind.
Looks like they're live right now.
Yeah, they're listening. They're listening to music too.
Okay.
There's a few of them in there. Cool.
Cool. It looks like listening to your new music plus mini beat battles.
Mini beat battles.
Okay. It looks like is this okay, it looks like it's not a subscriber or follower chat, so we'll rate them. So, okay, at this point, again, Dan, thank you so much for joining and doing this with me and
Hey,
being
thank you. Thank you
being
for having
being
me.
being the guinea pig a bit, you know.
Of
But
course, man.
I really had a good time getting to hear a bit more about your story and just like your process when you're creating stuff. I respect and admire you a whole lot as somebody, like that wants to continue to find balance in my own life, and to be able to have conversations with you about how we both do that is invaluable to me, and I know it would be invaluable to a lot of people who might be watching this right now. So, and this we'll be able to put this up on YouTube for however little or as long as you're willing for it to be up there, and people can watch it after the fact. And
Cool.
you can watch this 10 years from now and see if you still feel the same about a lot of those things.
We'll see, right?
Yeah. Well, guys, let's get ready to raid. Let's say bye to Dan here and say thanks for giving his time and energy and patience to us. I feel like the patience only a father could know how to give. So
Whatever, dude. It was awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
make sure you guys say hi to producer Grind, who we're rating right now. They're listening to submissions and having beat battles. I'm excited to check this out, and I'll see you in the chat.
Peace.
Later.